Are you suggesting that someone's trying to make a real-life sequel?
Stab 2? Who'd want to do that? Sequels suck.
No, come on, man.
Oh, please. By definition alone, they're inferior films.
Bullshit generalization. Many sequels have surpassed their original.
Oh, yeah?
Name one.
I'll be back.
Freedom, you're my older brother, and I love you. But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again. Never.
I just can't believe you came here and did it again. You guys give up or you're thirsty for more?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to Duel of the Greats Season 4, folks. Here we are. We are in week 12 now, and we have one of the premier matchups we've had all season. For those that have been following along, we know, or you know, it's this season has been movie versus sequel. Which is better? And when you think of these types of this question, lots of ones come to mind. Some we've already covered: Godfather Part 1 and 2, Star Wars and the Empire Strikes Back, Terminator 1 and 2, etc. Another one of the more recent ones that always comes up, and we're gonna decide definitively tonight. Batman Begins versus The Dark Knight, the first two films in the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy that essentially revolutionized superhero cinema. We're going to talk about it. We're going to decide and settle this debate once and for all tonight. Before we get going on that, though, don't forget, hit us up on the socials. We are Duel of the Greats pretty much everywhere except for TikTok, where we are at Duel Podcast. If you want to email us and send us an email, you can reach us at duelofthegreats@gmail.com. And speaking of which, we actually have a fan email that we wanted to read. Steve, do you have that ready for us? I should have mentioned this. I should have mentioned this before. That's my bad. We talked about it. We talked about it before the show.
He begins to nervously shake his head. No.
We talked about it last week. We're like, we forgot to bring it. We forgot to talk about the email. We're going to bring it up. I thought you have it queued up, but I guess you're not as good as I thought you were.
We've been screwing around for 30 minutes here while Nate gets his computer working.
I'm recording tonight on a brand new computer, so yeah, it's a fascinating night for us. You guys had the time to pull up the email, but unfortunately,
we're locked in. We're locked in tonight. Speaking of which, when you were trying to figure out all your stuff, Nate, at one point I was like, blink twice if you can hear us. And not only did you not blink twice, but it was a sequence where like you didn't blink for like 15 seconds. We're like, okay, he really can't hear us. So all right, Steve, you got this pulled up? You ready to go? We got this?
Yeah. I'm just
as we're waiting for Steve to pull this up, we can talk about our first experiences with these movies. So Batman Begins. Actually, I'm gonna drop a little knowledge on y'all first, okay? So I don't know. I know Brandon is. I don't know how many other people here though are familiar with one of my top 5 all-time favorite comic book artists and writers, Frank Miller. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. Frank Miller of Sin City fame, Batman, etc. So one of his most famous story, as far as superhero stories are, is Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. That was in 1986, the same year as Watchmen. So that, along with Watchmen, completely revolutionized the comic book industry. Then he later came up with Batman Year One, right? And so when they were after the Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher Batman verse, after that fizzled out with Batman and Robin, then we came into Christopher Nolan. But before Christopher Nolan gets this, what are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? Are you laughing at me? No? Okay. Steve's seeing something funny. I'm sorry, folks. But anyway, so early 2000s, they're like, okay, and this had never really been done before at this point. They're like, we're going to reboot Batman. Because at that point, we had really only had, we had Superman, in the 70s, and then that had multiple sequels, and that kind of fizzled out. We had Batman in the 80s and 90s, multiple sequels, that kind of fizzled out. And then we have Spider-Man in 2001. But they keep laughing at me. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
We're
keep laughing.
We have to
just
stop.
pause. Just pause. Look in the chat.
All right, guys. Sorry about that. It'll hopefully be seamless for you, but we had to cut out for a minute there to get the giggles out. Sometimes you got to do it. You know, it's the magic of podcasting. We can do this. We have this freedom. It's not Saturday Night Live. You know, when we break, we don't have to. You don't have to just roll with it. So, but anyway, so as I was talking about with Frank Miller, so Frank Miller, after Dark Knight Returns, he writes Batman Year One, and so when they decide they want to reboot the Batman series, DC Warner Brothers is like, okay, we're gonna do it with, we're gonna do Batman Year One, essentially. And at the time, so if you remember the late 90s, early 2000s, Christopher Nolan, I always kind of group these three directors to me because they all came up making sort of similar type movies and sort of came to prominence around the same time. Christopher Nolan, Darren Aronofsky, and David Fincher. And at the time, Darren Aronofsky was initially tapped to write and direct the first Batman, what eventually became Batman Begins. And Darren Aronofsky. So let me back up for a second. Frank Miller. One of the tenets, one of the things that makes Frank Miller is a lot of his comics are very violent, and he between Daredevil and Batman and multiple very violent comics, right? So that's kind of his reputation. He also wrote, if you even watch the movie 300, that was a graphic novel from Frank Miller, and Sin City, etc. So these just really violent stuff. Anyway. So Darren Aronofsky, they're like, oh, write the script. You know, we want you to write and direct. Write the script. We'll see what we think. So he writes the script and gives it to Frank Miller to review. And Frank Miller was like, oh boy, this is really violent. And if you get Frank Miller to say he wrote Sin City, if you get Frank Miller to say that something is really violent, then I don't even know what was in that movie. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. So they from there they decided, you know what, we're gonna chill on Darren Aronofsky, and then Christopher Nolan comes along. They get him to do it. They like his script, and the rest is history. So I always thought that was really interesting. Because
do you know, Jeff? Do you know, like when he wrote it, when Darren Aronofsky wrote it, was it truly envisioned as like an R-rated Batman movie?
Yes.
Like,
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So they're just like they're going all in. It's gonna be okay. Interesting.
Yep. Yeah, kind of like the like Deadpool, when they were like, okay, we're leaning into the Deadpool milieu. You know, that was what they were like. We're gonna really lean into this. And it's actually kind of interesting too, because for those who have read The Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller graphic novel, it's actually very similar to The Dark Knight Rises storyline, which is the third of the Christopher Nolan trilogy. But we won't be talking about that tonight. So just that fun little tidbit there. And before we get into sort of first experiences, we did talk about our email here. Our biggest fan, Sam, move over. Sam has some competition here between Nicholas Rizzi, who's a big fan of the show, and he came in. He might be, Nicholas. I'm sorry if you're a little upset at us, because it seems like you thought we were going one way, you thought we were going to zig, and we zagged on you when you thought we were going to talk about the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid movie and sequel, which we have not done, and spoiler alert, will not do this season. But
maybe we have to now. Maybe
that's an extra one. But we did Hellraiser instead.
We're looking at the email, Nicholas. I mean, you have thought a lot.
He lays out a very compelling
blew up
case.
the kid. It's It's amazing.
My favorite line of which that really sells the case is he's talking about the climactic ending with this gigantic baby, and he says, let me find it here. Also, in that scene, you see a moment when the crowd of people below are panicking and running around. When that baby begins to cry and the crowd stops panicking and the camera focuses on the crowd, mostly the women in the crowd looking up in silence. And at that moment, everyone realizes they aren't running from some monster, they are running from a baby that needs love and care. Just that whole quick scene brings a tear, no tears, to my eye. That's from Nicholas there. Very poignant response to Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. One that I never would have, never really would have thought of myself, but it's...
He says previously, it's been a while since I've seen the movie. He says, I don't know, watching that movie now, but the scene when the baby is shot and electrocuted, shot and electrocuted by the Hard Rock Cafe giant guitar, and he begins to cry. I start to get teary-eyed. I never used to get teary-eyed before, but now I do. I mean, Nicholas, that is what it's one of our favorite things we've ever read.
Yes.
Where honestly, you've given us all. This is amazing. What we're doing.
I want to bottle up this email and just.
Whenever I'm having a bad day, just crack
yes.
it open. Yeah, thank you for that, Nicholas.
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh man!
And he actually suggested about doing a trial episode, trial like court of law trial, like our theme of our show, not trial as in try it out, of movies that made us cry, and that's something perhaps that we will look into in the future.
I like his suggestion that we film these and wear robes and wigs and all that stuff.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting. Very interesting. At one point, my wife and I we watched a trailer for some movie that we had heard about, and immediately my wife said what she thought the Rotten Tomatoes score was, and it was a movie that had already come out just based on the trailer. And so we looked it up, and she was like almost dead on, and I was like, that's wild. And we did it a couple more times with movies that we had seen, but didn't know what the reception was. And she got pretty close again. She's like, I probably could do this for any movie. I was like, this should be a podcast. We could call it Trailer Court, because my wife is a lawyer. And boom, she could watch the new trailer or watch trailers and guess what the Rotten Tomato scores is going to be. That would
love this idea.
I know. I think it would be fun, but she didn't want to go for it. She's not a podcast person. But it's an innate talent.
We can do it.
The Rotten Tomatoes thing.
We'll have her
we're not as good as she is, or at least I'm not.
Well, we'll have her make the guesses, and then we'll.
Oh, and then I can relay them. Oh, that's a good way to do it. I'll have to tell her. Okay.
This is how the sausage is made. We're giving a look behind the curtain here.
There it is. Okay, but back on topic here. So.
This week has been off the rails since before we started.
We're all over the place, but we're getting back to it. Okay? That's what
thousands of angry emails from Batman fans that we killed to which side.
So, Batman Begins, Dark Knight. I will start. So, Batman Begins, because of the sort of rotten taste in my mouth from Batman and Robin, I wasn't super keen on the idea of them rebooting Batman because I wasn't sure what direction they were going to go. And at the time, I had not read either Dark Knight Returns or Batman Year One, so I wasn't really sure what material they had that they could work with. So I didn't actually see it. I was in college too, and I was in a small town. We only had one movie theater, so I didn't see it in the theaters. But I did. Eventually, I was like, I'm gonna rent this and see it. So I rented it, loved it, ended up buying it, and then I was like, okay, this Christopher Nolan guy, I think he knows what he's doing. And then Dark Knight came out, and that was my final year of college. I was actually in grad school that year, and Dark Knight comes out, and I was like, this one we're seeing in theaters. So me and all a bunch of our people from our grad school program, we go to the theaters and see it at midnight. Just blown away. You know, normally you think midnight, oh, I might be tired. Maybe you can make it through the whole movie, even if you're tired. But it's like, was not tired at all. Fully engaged the whole time. Just a fantastic experience. We went and saw it again that weekend. In fact, then once I graduated, I had a couple weeks before my job started. So I was just living at my parents' house while I waited for my job to start. And they would be at work and I'd have nothing to do. So I literally I would just roll up to the movie theater and see it. I did that like a couple times. I think I saw it 4 times total in the theater, Dark Knight. So it's yeah, both these movies definitely very impactful on my superhero movie watching history. So what about you guys? What was your first experiences with these?
I saw both in theaters. Um, Certainly remember, I think like you, Jeff, The Dark Knight was a much bigger deal. I remember Batman Begins was kind of a risky thing at the time because Christian Bale, I mean, people knew him, but he certainly wasn't a very big star. He was as close to unknown as a Batman actor it could be. And you really didn't have,
Also, sorry to interrupt, but also a Batman without Joker, which
yeah.
that's a really, you know.
Well, and really without any, I mean, Batman comic people, they know Scarecrow, but that's not really a well-known Batman villain. So you don't have a really well-known villain. All your name stars are kind of lack of better words, older characters. You've got, Michael Caine in there as Alfred, Morgan Freeman, Gary Oldman. Kind of the names attached to this project are more associated with kind of the older characters who are going to guide Batman a little bit. Liam Neeson, who are going to guide Batman a little bit in his journey. So I remember Batman Begins kind of being just a little bit more of a low key affair, and I saw it, loved it, obviously, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. And then The Dark Knight, of course, huge deal. I recall I saw it more than once in theaters. I don't think I saw it 4 times, but I think I saw it at least twice in theaters, and it was definitely one of those opening weekend. I didn't go at midnight, but I went like that Friday night or something. So it was a really big deal and completely packed theater. Kind of a way we don't see movies anymore. No reserved seats or anything. We all just kind of packed into a huge theater. So it was really fun, and I obviously remember both movies very fondly.
Yeah, similar trajectory of my love of these movies as yours, your guys's. I I remember watching the Michael Keaton Batmans in the '90s, and then Batman and Robin, Batman Forever before that. But I hadn't like fallen in love with the character and all that at that point. And then in high school and stuff, I just kind of never really thought about superheroes. And it was Batman Begins that brought me back into or not back into, but brought me into the Batverse, so to speak. Um, One of the guys that I hung out with at that time, he was super excited for it, and I remember we went and saw it, and I was like, "This is incredible." And like you, Christian Bale, I think his most famous role at that time as an adult was American Psycho, maybe. And I remember he was in the news around then for The Machinist, where he lost all that weight right
Yeah.
after he had bulked up for Batman, and so he was a topic of conversation, but not so much because of his acting so much as what he was doing to act. Um, so I definitely remember it being kind of a gamble, but just this grounded take. It was so different from anything that I was expecting, and I loved it. And then, like you guys, The Dark Knight. That was one of the only movies I've done the midnight launch for. It's one of my favorite movie going experiences. It was great. Felt like we were watching something not new, but a master at work. Um, so
Yeah,
to
and
this day, yeah,
at the time it broke the record, smashed the record for opening weekend money it made in the opening weekend, and we knew when that movie came out, which was like May-ish of 2008, and Heath Ledger had passed away
Yes, that was
in
a big part of it.
January of 2008. So that was sort of part of the mythos of the whole thing. And that was it's interesting because when Michael Keaton was cast for Batman, people hated it. I mean, they didn't even have the internet and message boards. People were like writing into newspapers to talk about how much they hated this thing. But the Jack Nicholson Joker casting was met with applause, if you will. And then it was kind of reversed because even though Christian Bale wasn't very known, he nailed the look. He very much looks like Bruce Wayne and Batman when he's not, super skinny for the Machinist, of course. But the Heath Ledger casting for the Joker, people hated it. And then the first photo came out, and people hated it. He had like long hair. He didn't have the very coiffed hairdo that Joker normally has in the comics, and people hated it. And but it clearly worked out. Heath Ledger became the first ever person to win for a comic book movie, win an Oscar posthumously.
Also, that movie is also the reason we have 10 Academy Award Best Picture nominees now, too.
That's
right?
true. That's right. Because it wasn't nominated for Best Picture, and they changed the rules the next year. It's a good point. Because it was nominated for like 8 Oscars except for that one. But anyway,
I'm gonna while we're chatting, I'm gonna look up the Best Picture nominees that year.
Slumdog Millionaire won. Pretty sure.
I think you're right, and right off the bat, I'll say like
that sounds right.
Slumdog Millionaire, like I like that movie. It's fine, but it was not my favorite movie of that year.
Well, and
which movie's more iconic?
That's what. Well, in all seriousness, what has persisted in the public consciousness more? I mean, come on, it's not even a competition.
I think about the Oscars in a similar way to you hear people talk about the Hall of Fame for professional sports, for NFL or baseball. Can you tell the story of the sport without these movies or without the people in it? And you can tell the story of Hollywood and movies, I think, without Slumdog Millionaire, but I don't know that you can do it without The Dark Knight. So.
Yeah, it's validation if you need it to be validation. But if you don't need it, like, before Martin Scorsese won for The Departed, he didn't need an Oscar for everyone to know he was one of the greatest directors of all time, even then. So anyway, but
I've got the Best Picture nominees.
Okay, let's hear them.
This year. Ready? Slumdog Millionaire won. It beat The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Frost Nixon.
Frost Nixon was my pick for that year. That's a fantastic film.
Yep. Milk. And The Reader. I've seen all these movies. Again, very much like Slumdog. They're all fine. None of these are as good as The Dark Knight. I mean,
there you go. Dark Knight wins this week.
And to be clear, Frost Nixon was the pick of those nominees. But Dark Knight was my favorite movie that year for sure.
So as Steve was saying, this is definitely the reason they have 10 nominees because that's outrageous. Anyway.
Yeah. So, all right. So with all that being said, we will get into it. Nate will be defending or advocating for Batman Begins, and Steve will be for The Dark Knight. So without further ado, we'll just hop right into it. Counselor, if you're ready, Nate, please proceed with your case.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have. I'm aware of the uphill battle that I am facing tonight. I think The Dark Knight is certainly a more iconic movie than Batman Begins, and I've used iconography as an argument in my own right. But I hope to maybe change and shift some perspectives about what we expect from a Batman movie and what we need from a Batman movie as an audience and as people who seek out stories. Batman Begins is not just the best in the trilogy. It's maybe the best Batman movie ever made. And I say that in the context of what we look for in a Batman movie and what really gets to the ethos of Batman and who Batman is. My first point being that there is a lot of debate, and I'm sure will be a lot of continued debate, on who the best Batman is. And all the different actors bring different elements to it. But in my opinion, there's absolutely no debate that Christian Bale is the best Bruce Wayne. So set Batman aside. Christian Bale is the best Bruce Wayne. And he hits the dichotomy of Bruce Wayne and Batman better than any actor. There is a fantastic scene in this movie where, and again, it's not like one that you typically think of as like some great Batman movie scene where Ra's al Ghul, who's been revealed kind of as the real Ra's al Ghul, the League of Shadows, they've come back to Gotham, and he has to get everybody out of Wayne Manor. He's got to get everybody out of the house, and he basically just acts really drunk and just in an instant becomes this total asshole to all these party guests to get them out, and even has people come up to him in this moment and be like, "Your father would be ashamed of you." And it really shows how Bruce Wayne sort of takes on the burden of being like this really bad guy to deflect from the fact that he is Batman. And I think this movie shows that better than any Batman film. I think there's a part toward the end where, in fact, it's one of the last scenes of the movie where the Wayne Manor's burned down. They're going to rebuild it. And Rachel, played by Katie Holmes in this. They switch actresses, but Katie Holmes is playing the character of Rachel in Batman Begins. She is kind of saying to him, and I think this really gets to the heart of my point. She's kind of looking at him and she's saying, Bruce, this isn't you anymore. This is the mask. Bruce Wayne is the mask, and Batman is who you really are. And again, I just think that for this kind of movie to have that kind of message, and to have an actor like Christian Bale nail it so perfectly. When we talk about Batman movies, we don't talk a lot about the Bruce Wayne component of it, and it's such an important component of it. And I think that Christian Bale is the best Bruce Wayne, and this is the best version of Bruce Wayne that we see on screen in any Batman film.
That's an interesting first point. And at the end of this, producer Brandon can pipe in, because I know he's got thoughts on that very topic that you just said about best Bruce Wayne and best Batman. But Steve, your rebuttal?
This is what's so difficult about these movies when they're both so good. I don't know that anything he said is refutable. I even think that he might be right that Batman Begins is a better Batman movie than The Dark Knight. But it's not whether this is a better Batman movie, it's which is a better movie. So, can I just go into my first point?
Wait, I'm not done with my points.
Yeah,
I got 2 more points.
And then how many have you been on this show before?
I kind of forgot, actually. I thought we did point, and then okay, yeah, fine, go ahead.
I in fairness, I do think we kind of switched it up for the Hellraiser week because I was the only one that had any arguments. But anyway,
You're the only one making any points.
Yeah. All right. Point number 2, Nate.
Good Lord. All right. So, my next point,
is chaos.
how this typically works, is I get to do my second point now as the person with the original movie. I know that, and I'm not going to sit here and argue that Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight it's probably the greatest acting performance in any comic book movie ever. I mean, I think that that's probably fair to say. Certainly in the, I don't know, I don't have a list in front of me, but probably in the top 2 or 3 if you don't think it's the absolute best. But it's pretty much the absolute best. He won an Academy Award for it. I will say, though, that, Heath Ledger's doing that, and I'm not knocking the performance at all, but he's doing it with a lot of makeup. He's sort of becoming this other person. I think that Cillian Murphy as Dr. Crane, the Scarecrow, is one of the most underrated Batman villains, on-screen Batman villains ever. Probably the most underrated. And what this movie does really, really, a very effective way is it kind of plays up the Falcone character, the Tom Wilkinson character, as kind of the bad guy, the main bad guy. And there's this fantastic scene where Batman has basically gotten Falcone into the prison. He's been arrested, and Dr. Crane comes to see him. And there's this reveal in this scene where he's Dr. Crane clearly getting very frustrated. And he kind of sighs and he goes, "Would you like to see my mask?" And he brings out this mask. And it changes the whole dynamic of the movie. And then it's suddenly like, oh, this is the villain. And just the way that he creates that characterization, I think it's perfect. If you don't know, Cillian Murphy actually he got this part because he auditioned and screen tested for Batman, and they decided he wasn't right for that. But Christopher Nolan completely fell in love with him as an actor, and of course later would cast him as Oppenheimer, and where he would win an Academy Award for that, and wanted to find a part for him in this movie and cast him as the Scarecrow. I will also say Cillian Murphy and the way he plays it, he is responsible for the way we say Batman for like the last 20 years. When he rips off the mask and goes, the Batman. The, just how he switches, how he goes from, if you watch the beginning of the movie, this very like suit and tie professional, to where by the end of the movie, he's kind of almost this crazed. It's very much the sort of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing that he does. It's really underrated. It's a really underrated performance. I'm not going to sit here and say it's better than Heath Ledger's performance. It's not that, and in some ways, I don't think you could even compare anything to it. But it's a really underrated performance, and it's a really underrated villain reveal. And when you go back, and we just briefly addressed this, that this movie, when it was released, it didn't really have any big Batman villains. For Cillian Murphy to really own this role and create this really, really great villain in Batman Begins, I think it says a lot about him as an actor, and I think it adds a whole depth to this movie that people still don't really appreciate.
Point. Steve, rebuttal for point number 2. And only your rebuttal.
Again, I find myself agreeing with much of that. I love his portrayal, Dr. Crane / the Scarecrow. And yeah, it was one, like I mentioned at the beginning, I wasn't familiar with the deep bench of the Batman villains at that point when I'd first seen it, because I just didn't have that exposure to the comic books and stuff. And so seeing kind of a new, to me, villain, it was very quite cool. I will say that he's also in The Dark Knight. So if we're gonna give him credit, then we have to also give credit for The Dark Knight, in which he does have a fantastic line reading. His tiny part when they're doing the deal with the Serbian or Chechen guy, and then all the fake Batmen show up, and Killian's like, "That's not him." And the second he sees him, he's like, "This is a man that has been intimately familiar with Batman. He knows when he shows up." Anyway, so yeah, all good points, but he's also in Dark Knight, so it's a wash if anything.
On to your final point.
All right. There is a scene in Batman Begins that I think is one of the greatest comic book scenes ever. And I think it's the best scene in the entire Dark Knight trilogy. And it is the docks scene. The reason that this scene is the best is not only because of how it's constructed, and this is the scene, that they kind of have the close-up of the guy firing the gun, and they go, "Where are you?" And the camera stays with him, and he backs into it, and Batman's hanging upside down. He goes, "Here." It's one of the coolest things ever. I mean, of any movie of my lifetime, it's just absolutely one of the coolest things. I think it's the coolest Batman scene ever. But what it really gets to, not only on top of it being cool, is it gets to this theme of fear that is used in Batman Begins, where basically Bruce Wayne has to go to the other side of the world to kind of understand his fears and breathe in his fears. And there is this moment when he's sort of making these little bat things, and Alfred says, "Why bats, Master Wayne?" And he says, "Bats frighten me, and it's time my enemies share my dread." This movie and the theme of fear, and why Bruce Wayne chooses the symbolism of a bat and becomes Batman, it's the only Batman movie that even bothers to explain that or go through the point of that. It really, really hits on this idea of, I'm going to be a symbol. There's a scene where he's riding back in the plane and he says, "It's not going to work for me to be Bruce Wayne anymore. I'm going to have to become something else to actually inspire the people of Gotham to do something." And so he understands that this symbol is going to be this thing that he can sort of project onto Gotham and he can do more as a symbol than he can as an individual person. And again, these are like deep themes about Bruce Wayne, this dichotomy of Bruce Wayne and Batman that this movie is actually addressing. My opposing counsel has already said that this is a better Batman movie. He said it. He said this is a better Batman movie. So again, I think just getting to these themes. I mean, that dock scene is like, it's scary. And it's really one of the first scenes that I had ever seen where it's like, oh, Batman's supposed to be scary to the people that he's hunting down. That he's a terrifying figure. And that scene finally is the first one that really encompasses this idea of like, people are supposed to fear Batman. Okay? He's supposed to be scary. So again, I just think this theme of fear with this dock scene, it all just comes together in this movie in such a perfect way. And again, plays perfectly off of Dr. Crane's, his notion of fear and spraying people with this gas and sort of getting into their fears. There's all these aspects of it that play into this theme just perfectly. So that's my final point.
Some interesting points, Steve. Your final rebuttal, and then you can go into your first point.
Now I don't know what to say because I love both of these movies so much, and everything he's saying is right. It's correct. It's gonna come down to, as always, that this season kind of a little bit of personal taste, but yeah, you truly feel what the bad guys of Gotham City feel in that scene. It's incredible. And I feel like the post Nolan Bale Batmans have been chasing that ever since. They try to do it with Ben Affleck when is it Batman versus Superman, when there's a scene when he's like hiding up in the roof or the ceiling and scaring some criminals, and it just doesn't hit the same. I don't know if it's because we've already seen it, or
he's like splayed against the corner.
Yeah.
That was Batman vs Superman. Yeah,
it just doesn't hit the same. But so excellent points, my esteemed opponent. If it please the court, I'll give you the
Counselor,
pitch.
you may
Dark
proceed.
Knight. And at the risk of sounding like just trying to soften the blow for a potential loss, I am worried if you have listened to our podcasts at all for the last 4 years, especially the episode where we talked about our favorite movies. I love this movie so much, and I am afraid that I'm not going to be able to properly do it justice. So I don't know that I'm big enough, that I'm up to the task of presenting why a movie this good should win. But I'm going to try. Point number one, the wind was taken out of my sails a little bit by going second. Maybe this is why I was so eager subconsciously, but it's Heath Ledger. The Joker character in this, it almost seems trite to lead with this, and because it's, gallons of ink and bits of megabits and kilobits of data have been spent in the 20 years almost since this movie came out, talking about why this character is so good and how he works. But the menacing undercurrent of chaos that is Heath Ledger's Joker, it's just something. It's something we've never seen before, and there's a reason he won the Academy Award for it. He became the Joker, and he became this force of nature that is just chaos incarnate. And no matter how many times I've seen the movie, going back and watching it, he just captures this sense of what the fuck is going to happen next so well that even if you know every beat of the movie, it just kind of jumps off the screen at you. I don't know that I'm going to be able to, I don't know that I have the vocabulary to properly explain why this performance works so well. But if you've seen it, you know it. And also, what other movie has a character in clown makeup grabbing a sitting senator by the face and squeezing him while threatening him, which happens to Senator Patrick Leahy in the scene where the Joker bursts in to the fundraiser for Harvey Dent. So that's pretty crazy Can you imagine, like, how did they get that through? I don't know if senators have Secret Service, but they're like, all right, this guy is with a knife in his shoe is gonna like literally grab you and hold you. I don't know. Anyway, I've gone on a tangent. So Heath Ledger is my number 1 point.
All right, rebuttal.
I think that Heath Ledger is masterful. I think he is perhaps too masterful to the point that he is a villain that overshadows what the story is supposed to be about. And so I think a little bit of the Dark Knight gets lost in Heath Ledger's Joker, and we lose the focus on who the Dark Knight is, and it being a Batman movie. But yeah, I mean, I can't speak to I'm not going to say anything against Heath Ledger's Joker. Obviously, it's a tremendous performance. As I said earlier, I think it's the finest acted performance of any comic book movie ever. So that's all I'll say about that.
On to your second point.
My second point is kind of related to what Nate just said there, actually, and going back to when I conceded that Batman Begins might be a better Batman movie. I specifically say Batman singular. I think Batman Begins does a better job of looking at Bruce Wayne and Batman and the dichotomy, as you pointed out, Nate, inherent therein. The Dark Knight does something that we haven't really seen in any Batman movies up to that point, and I don't really think since. It looks at Gotham City and the people of Gotham. Now, sure, they're in the other movies. We see people getting harassed by villains, and we see kind of some of the effects that these villains have on it. I'm thinking of some of the scenes in Batman Returns when people are running from the creepy clowns and all this. But The Dark Knight, the movie, yes, it's a Batman movie. Yes, Batman's in it. But it's really about what does the existence of the Batman mean to the people that live in this city? And what does the necessary pull of the Batman, pardon me, of, equal and opposite negative power, like the Joker, what does that tension do to these poor people living in this city? And what does it mean for them? And we see that over and over again. We see the effect it has on the police in the city. We see the effect it has on the people. I'm thinking of the gentleman that tries to kill the lawyer after the Joker lights a spark, essentially, and says, if this lawyer who's going to reveal Batman's identity isn't dead within an hour, I think he says he'll blow up the hospital, and that becomes a big plot point. So instead of just Gotham being a background character in a setting, it is a living, breathing character in this movie. And the movie is really kind of about that and the society of Gotham. Batman is almost a perfunctory figure. And he is, I think, honestly, Christian Bale's performance is better in Batman Begins. I'll give you that. But because he's given more to do. Batman doesn't change a whole lot. Bruce Wayne doesn't change a whole lot in The Dark Knight. He doesn't go on as big of a journey. But the symbol of Batman and what that is going to mean to these people, and the fact that people have somehow internalized some of the lessons of him, justice and belief, and what do we believe is true versus what actually is true. All these things, it's just much headier stuff than Batman Begins. If Batman Begins is about fear, and then The Dark Knight is about order and chaos and the very thin line between them, and as represented in the city of Gotham. So Gotham, I guess Gotham as a character is point number 2.
Rebuttal, good sir.
It's a really good point. And I think it carries on a little bit even into The Dark Knight Rises. I don't want to tread too far into the path of like, oh, well, it wouldn't exist if it weren't for Batman Begins. I think that Batman Begins does a pretty good job of setting up a worldview. And it's interesting they shoot a lot of this in Chicago. Gotham traditionally had kind of been thought of as kind of a New York city. These trilogies all use Chicago quite a bit. There's a little bit of Dark Knight Rises uses more establishing shots of New York.
In
But
the sorry, just a fun little note in the scene in Dark Knight where Bruce Wayne like crashes his car to save the I can't remember the guy's name, that's going to reveal his identity
Yeah,
or
the
whatever.
lawyer.
Yeah, and they focus on the back of his car, and it's their Illinois license plates. Like it doesn't say Illinois because it's Gotham, but it is outside of the word Illinois, it is exactly the Illinois license plates.
yeah.
Phenomenal.
So, yeah, I think it definitely. I mean, I guess I'm kind of in the same spot as Steve was when I was arguing. I mean, I mean, it's a great movie that uses the city and its citizens and what chaos kind of does to those citizens in a really effective way.
Your
Just
final
as an
point,
aside,
counselor.
well,
Go
thank
ahead.
you.
I
My
love
my
asides.
apologies. My apologies. Um, it's kind of one of my biggest disappointments with The Dark Knight Rises. I don't dislike it like a lot of people do, but so the first two movies of this trilogy kind of explored different themes and different aspects of the Batman character slash universe, like we've just been talking about. And I feel like Dark Knight Rises just kind of, like you said, further explores the themes of Dark Knight, full stop, and Dark Knight. And it doesn't really do a lot of new stuff in terms of digging into. I mean, I guess it's just trying to do a redemption story, but anyway, we're not here to talk about The Dark Knight Rises. So my third point, and I feel like this is in all these seasons, all these episodes we've done, one thing that I feel like I talk about a lot is pacing and tempo. And The Dark Knight, for my money, is one of the best paced movies of all time. There is a sense of just kinetic, propulsive force from the second it opens with the bank robbers looking down over the across the street when they're getting ready to shoot the little zip lines. And the score really helps with this too. It's not just the visuals. This movie it's like white knuckle the whole time. It's like you can feel that you're building up to something. You don't know what it is. There's this tension and this sorry, I heard a beep, threw me off. There's a tension. I'm so wired, man, that any little thing is gonna like I said, I think looking back on it, and maybe I'm reading way too much into this, but the US, our society as of like 2007, 2008, it felt like, and it still to some extent feels this way, that we are hurtling towards some unknown catastrophe almost. There are so many tensions built up from class issues, race issues, legal inequalities, injustices, affordability. I mean, literally, just it feels like everything and everybody's being squeezed. And part of this is, the media stoking things, and we're kind of a pot that's boiling. And this movie, I think, captures the feeling of that. And because of the themes that it's addressing, I think it's almost an eerie kind of snapshot of time. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it's reflected in the pace. The fact that this movie just has no time. I've used this as a complaint of some other movies that we've discussed, but this movie, in a good way, doesn't stop to breathe very often. It hits its marks and it keeps going, and you just feel like you're on this train that is going to end horribly. Not for you, the viewer, of course, but for everybody involved. And I don't know of any other movie. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's some classics, but that just buckle you in and take you on such a ride at such a pace that it just, I almost lack the words for it, obviously. So I'll go back to my notes and say the pacing. It's propulsive. It's kinetic. It's building up to this crescendo, and like every little second, every shot matters. Everything we're seeing matters. So, point number 3: pacing.
Final rebuttal.
I don't disagree with its breakneck pacing. I think that my one criticism of the film is it causes it to run off the rails a little bit in the third act and gets a little bloated. Um, it gets a little too into every little scenario the Joker is playing up could be like its own separate movie. It just feels like we're kind of throwing stuff in. Um, Particularly with the inclusion of Harvey Dent as Two-Face, it starts to feel like there's a lot of, maybe one too many characters, one too many, big bads. So I think the pacing, it definitely hangs on and it doesn't let go. I think that more toward the end of the film, that becomes a little bit of its weakness. That's one minor criticism that I've kind of always had of this movie. So that's my rebuttal to that point.
He's wrong. He's wrong, Your Honor. Objection. He's wrong.
All right. Well,
That's a perfectly valid objection.
Before we get to closing arguments, I had a question, and I'm curious on how you would answer both within the context of your movies. So, as we often know, as we're doing, as is basically the entire point of this podcast, as movies, they come out, they get they get a response one way or another, good or bad, and then years pass, time goes on, they get reevaluated. Years pass, time goes on, they get reevaluated again. We're 20 years plus past Batman Begins and almost 20 years away from The Dark Knight. Now, at the time, both these movies were very highly acclaimed and still are, of course. But some of the revisiting, especially within the most recent decade, I think there's been a lot of discussion around these movies, and probably a little bit more so on the Dark Knight side of things, but just about how the movies, and Steve, you kind of alluded to this in your final point, which is sort of a good segue into this, but just the sort of post 9/11 hysteria that we had, it sort of encapsulated some of that. Both these movies did. And there's sort of some people have even gone further to accuse it of sort of having some sort of neoconservative, and this is something that Christopher Nolan and basically all his movies has kind of been a criticism sort of lobbed at him. But that whole argument about these movies sort of started maybe a decade ago-ish. But then now, 10 years later, a lot's happened in the last 10 years. And it feels almost like things have kind of come back around again. So viewing these movies through the prism of when they were created and the time past, how do you feel like they've aged, and how do you feel like the messages have aged in regards to just how our society has evolved? Because there are almost some sort of predictions about how our society, at least in America, would sort of evolve from here, and how it would sort of handle some of these things that have almost sort of come to be a reality. So how do you feel like these movies have aged in those regards? We'll start with you, Nate, since you're the first.
Yeah, well, I think they both, honestly, both movies, I think, hit on this theme pretty effectively, that, systems are corrupt. And certainly I think they hit on that because at the time, and I think perhaps even more so today, there's kind of a sense that justice is not served by systems. However, only one movie, Batman Begins, I think, again, really shows Bruce Wayne's commitment to an ideal of justice. There's a thing after he's ready to join the League of Shadows, and he's given one final assignment. This prisoner is brought before him, and they give him a big sword, and they say, "You got to kill this guy." They go through all this guy's crimes and stuff, and Bruce Wayne says, "No, I'm not an executioner. This man should be tried." And they're throwing it by what? Tried by whom? A corrupt system. but I think that it really shows, Bruce's ability to still believe kind of in this sense of justice, as perhaps silly as that belief is. Um, he still kind of seeks out good people and good things in himself to find and fight, to fight injustices in the right way, in the way that he sees it. So again, I think both movies honestly do it pretty well, though. So I mean, I think they're both still very much kind of a reflection of the political and class divides that we have today in the U.S. at least.
Yeah, that's an excellent point about the systems and him holding on to his beliefs. You know, maybe it's more cynical, but in The Dark Knight, Batman realizes that he's a symbol and he could be more useful if people think that he did something that he didn't do. Because the story that people have to tell themselves to make it through the day, that there are still honorable people, that that justice is still possible, as embodied by Harvey Dent, not Two-Face, but Harvey Dent. He realizes how important that is. And again, maybe that is cynical of me, but sitting where we are in 2026, sometimes it's like that's about the only thing we can hold on to is the story that we tell ourselves that justice will be served, and the fact that Batman's willing to sacrifice his reputation, we'll call it, even though he doesn't really believe that he has one, but he's willing to be the guy that can take the hit, because people need something to believe in. So I think that's pretty prescient. Jeff, I don't know if you were getting at this, but I do think the post 9/11 kind of intelligence state, the fact that we're being surveilled, and then later came out in like 2013 with the I forgot what it's called, but the Edward Snowden leak that showed that basically all of our communications were being watched and recorded. It's just become so commonplace now that I don't know about you guys, but I just assume everything we write or type or whatever is just subject to being scooped up and compiled by both our government and enemy, foreign governments and everything. But it's interesting that Christopher Nolan did choose to do that at the end of The Dark Knight. He does this panopticon idea, so, the all-seeing eye or all-hearing eye, I guess it's the sonar system that he uses. It's horribly invasive, and it's against everything they stand for, on the side of good and justice and all that good stuff. But it works. So is Christopher Nolan saying that's necessary? Saying it's justified? This was in the middle of the Iraq War and all that, so I think it raises more questions than it answers on that front, as far as how it's to your question of whether it's aged well or not. I don't know on that particular aspect. What is it telling us about the surveillance state? Is it a good thing, a necessary evil? I'm inclined to say no, but anyway.
Not to make your argument for you, but you could argue that since it's still a relevant question, that it's aged well, I guess.
I guess that's a good point. Yeah, it's 20 years ago, and it's still a very hot topic. Maybe it's just I am too cynical on that front, because I'm like, I feel like that's a battle we've lost. We are being surveilled, presumably at all times. If not actively, at least the ability exists. Yeah. So
very true.
So that's.
I mean, there's. I won't even bring that up. That'll get too political. But so yeah. All right, and then now just short closing arguments here. Nate, go ahead.
Again, I think if you dive into the Batman comics, the Batman ethos, I think that, and again, my opposing counsel said it, that this is a better Batman movie. And so it's going to kind of come down to you, judge, of, what we're looking for. We're talking about Batman. This is a Batman week. There are two attorneys who both say that Batman Begins is a better Batman movie. So I'm going to let you make that distinction. But again, I really think that to dive into that Batman ethos, you really have to understand Bruce Wayne. And I think my final argument was kind of my first argument was that this movie understands Bruce Wayne better than any Batman movie ever. And it really understands, what motivates him, what drives him, what scares him. It really gets to the heart of that in a way that other Batman movies do not, and it's really, it's refreshing and it's different, and I think it's aged superbly in terms of how this is a character we've seen so many times now on film, and yet we still have this one movie that really shows how he becomes Batman and what this means to him and the purpose of him doing this. This movie really goes about explaining that in a way that other Batman films don't.
Steve, your closing arguments?
Batman Begins, like he said, is great. It's a wonderful character study of Batman, singular Batman, and Bruce Wayne. The Dark Knight is doing something that we just didn't see in Batman movies before then, or superhero movies. It's what does this do to the people that live in these comics? These comic worlds. How do they go about their lives, and what effect does it has on them when you have a Batman running around, a Joker running around, pouring gasoline on the fire, literally at times. And I think it's exemplified in the final bit with the fairies, and it's the trolley problem writ large, right? Except even worse, because the trolley problem, it's what you can save one person or save like 4 or 5 people in the classic thought experiment. Here it's, if you act, you're going to blow up 300 people, but you might save yourself plus another 299 people. But that scene and that conceit in this movie gives us a chance to kind of wrestle with some of the same questions that people in Gotham must be wrestling with. What does it mean to actually do good? You have the symbol showing you, that evil can be fought and corrupt things can be taken down. How does that actually trickle down to the day-to-day lives of these people? And it's kind of acted out on those 2 ferry boats. And the fact that they wind up not blowing each other up is ultimately a vote that Batman has done good. The symbol of Batman is useful in Gotham, and he helps kind of save the city. And so ultimately, I think The Dark Knight is about the city of Gotham, and we've never seen that to that depth. Not to mention, I'd be remiss to not hit on my original points as well. Heath Ledger knocks it out of the park. The pacing is amazing. Sorry. And yeah, it's about the people of Gotham, not about Batman necessarily. That's why you should vote for Harvey Dent. I mean, The Dark Knight.
Man, this is tough. I mean, like you both have said, it's so hard. Both movies are great. I think Nate, you made a very salient point when talking about The Dark Knight, how it maybe bites off a little bit more than it can chew in the third act. If there's a criticism to be laid, that's probably the major one. So in thinking about it, it's makes it's so tough just because they're so good, and I love both of them so much. I think Steve and Nate, you both, as Nate has reminded us multiple times, Steve, you brought up that Batman Begins might be a better Batman movie. So I think for me, the biggest thing here, though, is I'm going to have to go with The Dark Knight. And I have to because even though you might be right that Batman Begins is a better Batman movie, I think that does actually help your argument, Steve, because it reinforces that The Dark Knight was the first comic book movie to truly transcend the genre and become something more than just a comic book movie, where we could look at these and just say it's a good movie, not it's a good comic book movie. Because whenever you put like a qualifier on that, it's always like, oh, it's a good movie for a comic book movie, But then I think Dark Knight, and that's not to say that Batman Begins isn't a good movie on its own, because it absolutely is. But I do think that what the Dark Knight did and being able to transcend that then allowed people to start saying like, hey, these movies are just plain good. It doesn't even have to be. We don't have to qualify it. We can just say they're good because they are. And the effect that had on the world at large, and ultimately the cherry on top being just Heath Ledger's performance. As I agree with what you're saying, Nate, about Cillian Murphy. He's fantastic in Batman Begins, but man, it's just, I mean, it's Heath Ledger Joker. Like, we want to talk about the impact that the Dark Knight had. The impact that that Heath Ledger's Joker has had on essentially every single villain in like every movie since then. I mean, it's almost like every single villain tries to incorporate just a little bit of Heath Ledger's Joker in some way. And they use that, I'm certain, in pitches for a lot of movies that involve some sort of a villain like that. They sort of use that as the base. Like, oh, it's Heath Ledger's Joker mixed with something else or whatever, So,
I actually have a theory that it's literally influenced Tom Hardy's entire career. Like Tom Hardy is like doing so obviously he was Bane in the Dark Knight Rises. Then in every movie he's doing some little voice. Like there's always some weird kind of little voice that Tom. It's like you're trying to do Heath Ledger, the Joker. Like that's what you're literally trying to do in every movie. He just always has some weird little voice he's doing.
yeah, and I mean, if we've had two Joker only spin-off movies. I shouldn't say spin-off because they don't actually cross over into that particular Batman universe. It gets very complicated, of course, but they're their own thing. But they are we do not get those two Joker movies if not for Heath Ledger's Joker. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I remember my favorite James Bond movie is Skyfall, and Javier Bardem plays the villain in Skyfall, and he's got a little bit of Joker in him. And
They
how
even
many other.
used they even did the same. It's like a screenplay thing. Like bad guy purposely gets caught. Skyfall does the
Oh yeah,
exact same
yeah,
thing
absolutely,
and
yeah,
that is like that is on purpose. Like that is a screenplay template that they did on purpose because it worked
yep,
in Dark Knight.
yeah. So it's just so influential, and I think, and it's even more so after your argument. I think Batman Begins for me now is closer to the Dark Knight than it was when I first saw the Dark Knight. And I was like, man, Batman Begins isn't even close to as good as this. And but so the reevaluation has definitely helped. I don't think a reevaluation has made the Dark Knight better just because it was so good already, but I do think reevaluation has made Batman Begins a lot better. Specifically for me personally, can't speak for everyone, but I think the general consensus has ticked that up a notch as well. Especially seeing, Dark Knight Rises, which was a fine movie, but considering how great Begins and The Dark Knight were, Rises was a bit of a letdown. I think we can all probably agree on that one. But it's yeah, so there it is. But just real quick, Brandon, for those that don't know, Brandon is a very big Batman fan. So Nate made a claim that Christian Bale is the best Bruce Wayne. I don't think you agree, Brandon. Am I right? If I remember correctly.
I do not think Christian Bale is the best Bruce Wayne.
Who do you think's
Who
the
do you
best
got?
Bruce
I
Wayne?
cannot remember who yours is.
Man,
Yeah.
I haven't looked at my list in a while. Um,
He's got a list. The man has a list.
I have
He
a list.
does.
Ben, I've ranked the Jokers, the Batman, the like every version of whatever. God, I'm trying to remember.
Don't say Ben Affleck. I've seen that as a
No,
hot take.
I know, I
not
know,
Bruce
I
Wayne.
know you've
Not
liked.
Bruce Wayne.
I know you like the Val Kilmer Bruce Wayne quite a bit.
Me? Yeah, I didn't hate Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne, but he wasn't my favorite Bruce Wayne.
Oh, okay. For some, maybe I was. Yeah.
You might be thinking of somebody else.
Yeah.
I have a hot take. Of I also think really highly of Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne.
Oh, see, I disagree. Robert Pattinson is a great Batman, and I love that film, but like he's not Robert Pattinson's, and this
I
is a
didn't
little
say
bit of the
he's best, I
script.
think he's higher.
He's not. The whole point of Bruce Wayne is it's a deflection. It's a mask. Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is like this mopey, moody, gothy. Like everyone would think he's Batman. There's no deflection whatsoever.
Okay,
Is he bad? You guys think he's Batman?
It's like, I think the guy, that rich guy,
He might be Batman.
in terms
who
of
beats the shit out of people, it's real mopey. He's probably Batman.
in terms of Bruce Wayne, I think Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne.
Keaton's a good Bruce, yeah.
It's hard to.
And
He
kind of plays up the very much like Christian Bale. He plays up the rich, pretty boy kind of thing.
playboy,
He does a good job with that.
Yeah. I would maybe put Bale two or three, but I think Kilmer or not Kilmer, Keaton's Bruce is really good because of the way he portrays him. Like when he's out basically anytime he's in a tux in that fucking movie, Kilmer, or I keep saying Kilmer because you said Kilmer, Keaton kills it to me. Like he looks like he's a billionaire that's just pretentious and an ass. And so my hot take, my really hot take that most people don't agree with is that I would venture to say of live action Jokers, I put Cesar Romero at number one.
I love Cesar Romero. He's so good.
Cesar, because looking, if you go back and everything, you kind of like the mythos of everything they've done with Joker up to now, and you actually go back and watch the 60s Batman, Romero's Joker is kind of like creepy as shit and like has a very like dark vibe to him and the way he behaves. And there's just something like I just like him as an actor anyways, but like there's just something I just absolutely love about his take of the Joker.
Most people gone back and watched 66. I need to
It's
check it out.
yeah, it's weird because like Romero, it almost feels like he's like in a different show or a movie if you watch the movie than the rest of them. Like he's just a little bit edgier and not in a like cringy way, but in like a good way. As compared to like
not in a Jared Leto way.
Yeah, exactly.
And as cringy as Batman 66 really is and corny as shit, he's Romero's Joker is just a little bit different. Now,
like you could take Romero's Joker and you could put him into 89 Batman and you wouldn't have lost anything.
Darken his clothing up to match the aesthetic of 89 Batman, and he fits right in next to Nicholson.
I agree with that.
Now we're all sitting here debating live action. Joker is Mark Hamill and Batman is Kevin Conroy. I'm like those two will always like.
Yeah.
If you ask me, those are the names that I will almost always.
R.I.P. Kevin. I'm so sad. Like, so there's this year, they're coming out with a Lego Batman video game that's going to go through the entire history of Batman, and it makes me so sad that Kevin Conroy won't be able to do the voice. Man, R.I.P.
His last performance was in that shitty Suicide Squad.
The Suicides. Yeah, God.
I don't actually know if it's shitty. I just know it was not the type of game I wanted to play.
It was fine.
The story.
Yeah, it was free on PS.
Yeah, it was free on Play. The story was good. The problem is the gameplay loop was just garbage.
Yeah. But anyway, so there it is. All right, so let me pull up the.
You want public opinion on this one?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Public opinion, and we have to do
the sequel. My opinion on Batman. Batman Begins. I just watched all 3 movies with my kids. I used to always put it at The Dark Knight, but for me, it's Batman Begins. After rewatching them for like probably the 5th time.
Well, you're not the judge, so all right, moving on. Interesting. What makes you? Well, hang on. I'm curious. What makes you say that? Is there something in particular that jumps out, or just vibes?
I think Heath Ledger makes The Dark Knight, like from start to finish. Heath Ledger makes The Dark Knight, And I think because of if you would have stuck, if that would have been any other person doing Joker, even if it was a really good Joker, it wouldn't have been Heath Ledger's Joker, and I don't think it would have been quite as good. And especially after watching it with the kids, yes, I think I would have almost rather Harvey Dent been a villain in a third movie.
Yeah,
Like, end it with him that way and set him up to be in the third movie by
agree.
extending that out. I
Like
think
if they would have just had the hospital scene where they're evacuating and they're like, "Where's Harvey Dent?" And then people are like, "We don't know, we can't find him, but we have to leave." And that was the last you hear about him. And then he comes back in the third one. That would have been perfect.
yeah,
They
I
had
think
to.
I think the setup they just did in Batman Begins was just perfect for
Oh,
me.
it was great. The card.
Yeah.
So then best sequel? Does this take it from Terminator 2? It's tough,
So
man. This is
I
tough.
wanted to say yes at first blush, but then I was thinking about it and everything we've talked about on our criteria for that. Does it retroactively make the first one better? I don't know, but here's what I do know. I think the first, and this is going to sound strange, but I don't know that you can fully appreciate Dark Knight without Batman Begins, despite me arguing the Batman or the Dark Knight's better. Like it that background, the story arc that Bruce Wayne / Batman goes through in Batman Begins makes everything in the Dark Knight that much better. So by that logic, it's almost like it's a necessary part of making the Dark Knight good. So therefore, the Dark Knight can't be one of the best sequels because it relates so much back to the first one. Does that make any sense? Whereas Terminator 2 is a standalone. Like, it does, I think, make Terminator better, but I think you could just watch Terminator 2 and
they cover enough of
I
what
think-
happened in Terminator 1 in Terminator 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that's the only reason because they do. Fun story. I heard an interview with James Cameron recently. He went on Michael Bean's podcast, and I sent you guys a clip.
Yeah,
some of this,
where Michael Bean was
but,
talking about how they killed off his character in Aliens.
Yeah,
Alien
but
3.
In a different part of that interview, James Cameron is talking about how he's trying to write Avatar 2. And he's like, okay, I need to recap the events of Avatar 1, but I don't want to spend too much time with it. And he's like, I'm really struggling with this. He goes, I go to I'm walking by a newsstand and I see something from like the Writers Guild of America puts out a magazine, or at least they did at this time. And he's like, so I buy this magazine because on the cover it says like, how to recap first movie, transition in second movie, something to that effect. And he goes, so I get it, I buy it, I go home, I open up to the article, and he goes, and it says, how to recap the first movie like Terminator 2 does. It's like, oh shit.
Mission failed successfully.
All right, so fan stuff.
Oh yeah, go with the fan.
Okay.
We got 70 votes, 83-17 split for The Dark Knight, which I wasn't surprised at. I mean,
I'm surprised it's that high.
Yeah, I wasn't too surprised that the internet went a little more to The Dark Knight. I mean, it's a more critically acclaimed film. I think it's more acclaimed even amongst internet users, and I mean, I wasn't too surprised that it won. But yeah, it won pretty handily.
But so did we reach definitive that we don't think it's as, because like, I don't know.
I think what Steve said is right. I think that in some ways it's not. I mean, I don't think it is because I think you kind of have to watch Batman Begins before. Terminator 2 is a standalone, and it retroactively makes the first Terminator better. I don't think Dark Knight, I think it's great. I don't think it's so much better than Batman Begins that it retroactively makes Batman Begins better. I think Batman Begins really kind of stands on its own as a great film on its own.
Okay.
I think that's where I'm at too.
An interesting thing with me with my kids watching it. So one's 18 and one's 13. One's 18's almost 19. But like there were so many and this is the pop culture aspect from The Dark Knight, is there were so many lines that happened during the movie that both of my kids were like, that was where that comes from now.
Yeah.
Like, people say certain things and it's just like, that's what
awesome.
that is. So
someone just want to watch the well Ben.
And the whole live long enough to you die here or live long enough to become the villain. Christopher Nolan has said multiple times that his biggest regret is that the best line is the best line in the movie, and he didn't even write it. He said his brother wrote that.
Did Goyer write it?
What?
Was it
his brother did?
Oh.
Jonathan Nolan of Westworld fame.
It also has Dark Knight has a great Batman. I don't know if it's a quip, but just this great setup of he's holding the gangster like over the balcony, and the guy's real chill, and he's like, "Hey man, one professional to another. Next time, pick a better spot. Fall from here wouldn't kill me." And he's like, "I'm counting on it," and he just drops him. That's one of my favorites.
And then next time we see him, he's got the crutches. Or like the little cane that he's walking with. Oh man!
I think my biggest complaint about Christian Bale is that he made Batman the Mask, and the whole mythos with Batman is Bruce Wayne is the Mask. He is Batman. Bruce Wayne is the Mask. So Kevin Conroy always talked about the voice he did. His voice was when he talked like Bruce Wayne. When he did Batman, it was more his natural voice, and that's like something that's always sat with me because Batman, Bruce Wayne is Batman. Bruce Wayne is a front that he puts on for the world to see.
Yeah.
And I feel like had Bale been able to do that better and not do this weird, creepy ass voice, I think I might have ranked him. I would rank him higher in general as both Batman and Bruce Wayne if he could have managed that.
The voices in particular, it's a choice, and it gets worse as the movie goes on too.
So they actually, interestingly, they did that digitally. So Christian Bale actually didn't do that. That was a Christopher Nolan decision in post that they altered his voice. Now he's obviously Christian Bale when he's performing it, he does a little bit of a Batman voice, but they, I guess they punched it up in Dark Knight. Yeah, it does seem to just like
Christopher Nolan.
It gives him a sort of lisp almost.
Yeah.
It is.
Like
it's
one of my friends, we got into an argument one time, like a year or two after the movie came out, and he was like, "Why does he have a lisp when he talks to the Batman?" And I was like, "He doesn't have a lisp." And then he has, like, I had the movie on my phone. I'm in a bar at this time, like, and I was like, "Oh shit, he kind of does." How did I know this before? But yeah,
Christopher Nolan's a genius. He's one of the best filmmakers of all time. But the man has such strange opinions on audio and sound mixing.
He does.
Like, what the fuck, man?
Yes, very, very, very opinionated on these matters, is he. But yeah, so with wrapping that up here, we have found ourselves in a not uncommon position for this show. We got a tie.
Are we tied?
Of 6-6 now. We knew this final. We didn't organize it this way. We organized it to try and match up with some holidays and stuff. But it was. This has been quite the run for the sequels here. So.
Oh yeah.
4 in a row for the sequels after 5 out of 6 for the originals to start the season. So, yeah, it's going to come down to the wire yet again. And next week, we have another one. This is Nate's baby next week.
Yeah.
We've got Scream versus Scream 2, another horror movie collection. This one's going to be interesting. A very meta narrative for these movies, especially once we get to the sequels. So that will be interesting. Nate will be taking Scream, or I'm sorry, no, Nate will be the judge. Steve will be taking Scream, and I will be taking Scream 2. So that'll be a very interesting. Just last year, I ran through the whole. I had seen the first 2 Scream movies, like when they came out, and nothing since. So I ran through the whole series last year. So I'll rewatch them again. But a lot of interesting stuff in this series.
So
I'm not.
I got a question for you guys. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm not sure when it will line up in terms of release, but the new one's coming out. We're recording this in mid-January, and the new one's coming out at the end of February. So
is it really? I didn't realize it was that soon. All right.
Yep. So there'll be another one out.
Is it like Scream 9 now?
It's
7.
It's 7. Yeah, Scream 7.
But speaking of which, though, it's interesting that we didn't. One of the ones that we didn't even consider this. I don't know how we didn't think of it. But this past weekend, I rewatched the first time in a long time. 28 Days Later. So 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. That was both very good. And we didn't even like have that as an option. I didn't even think of it. And then, of course, last year came out 28 years later, and then next week, or is it already out?
This week.
A sort of spin-off.
Like Friday.
Or, yeah, like this coming weekend is what it, yeah, so the 28 years later, Bone Temple. I'm pretty excited about that one. I'm going to have to check that out. But anyway, so that does it for this week, folks. A fantastic episode. We settled the debate once and for all. Dark Knight, probably not surprising that many people. But, you know, sometimes cliches are a cliche for a reason. So anyway.
I kept thinking about this, and we kept saying, well, it's only because of Heath Ledger. It's like, yeah, but Heath Ledger's performance is in it.
So yeah, I mean, that's like that's kind of like when we said, you know, when my argument was, well, The Godfather's better because of Marlon Brando. And it's like, well, it's only because, you know, well, yeah. that's the thing. Yeah.
The Chiefs have only been good the past 7 years because they have Patrick Mahomes. It's like, well, he is on the team. Like,
yeah, that's the point.
Sports work.
Yes, very much so. So yeah, the next week will be a fun week, and then we'll only have one more week after that, and it's an extra special one to finish out the season. So we'll reveal what that is next week. But yeah, that's it for now. We're all tied up. Come back next week. Scream 2. Don't forget to follow us on the socials at Duel of the Greats everywhere except for TikTok at Duel Podcast. You want to email us to regale us with your tales of rewatching movies like Honey, I Blew Up the Kids.
Yeah, see if you can stop.
Please do. And do that at duelofthegreats@gmail.com. So yeah, well, thanks everyone for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.